South Africa's national electricity grid has inadequate capacity to operate within reasonable operating buffers. The overworking of aging power stations has triggered failures and sparked load shedding. With that said, there has been a growing movement in support of nuclear energy as an alternative form of energy rather than coal-generated energy. With the Nuclear Corporation of South Africa being at the front lines of a movement called Stand Up for Nuclear. NECSA recently made a statement in one of their demonstrations in Pretoria where they pointed out that South Africa has successfully operated the Koeberg nuclear power plant for more than 30 years without a single fatal incident. In your opinion, do you think nuclear energy is the answer to this country's energy crisis? Yes, no, and why?
So I think nuclear energy is inevitable.
Okay.
If we, one of the struggles that we've got economically and with resources in our country is that we're one of only 16 countries in the world that's got a positive population growth. So that obviously puts a lot of pressure on our economy, but it also puts a lot of pressure on our resources. And so nuclear energy is certainly inevitable. It's going to happen. It has to happen. The problem that you've got is not necessarily the form of the power that gets generated. The issue that we'll have and the challenge that I think South Africa will have is where do they get the money to build a nuclear station?
Okay.
And where do they get the expertise to build a nuclear station that actually has enough power to keep the whole country going? And there are only really two countries that can do that, and that's Russia and China. So the problem that you've got with going into business with Russia and China and you default on the debt is that they start taking land.
Okay.
And, both those countries are of communist background, which means that they both still possess massive armed forces, navy, infantry, and air. We don't possess that. So how do we defend ourselves if we default on the debt? And so I think that's the biggest risk consideration that government needs to go into is, can we actually pay back the money? And my answer is right now, I don't think so.
Okay. All right. So my next question was going to ask about do we have the resources to take on nuclear energy? But I think you've already answered that for us.
So we've got natural resources to try and postpone the inevitable.
Okay.
We've got enough wind, we've got enough sun to ensure that we can put relatively inexpensive natural resource energy plants up through turbines and through solar panels that can be sold into the grid. So we certainly have enough natural resources to postpone it for another 5 or 10 years.
Okay.
And I speak relatively informally because I know some high up guys with regards to energy sources within South Africa. But we still, we need to get ourselves economically ready to be able to take on the building of a nuclear power station. And that possibly goes back to our previous chat with regards to the labor. Getting an economy kick-started would kickstart the fact that we will be economically stable to take on debt because we're going to have to fund it.
Okay. Now, the Minister Gwede stated that nuclear energy will play a bigger and bigger role in providing clean energy. Do you think that nuclear energy is clean and safe, in your opinion?
I think it's certainly cleaner than coal.
Okay.
And possibly not as safe if something goes wrong. Obviously, we all know about Chernobyl. But, there's been lots of technical advancements in the last decade and more. And a lot of countries worldwide is using nuclear power. It is seen to be a first world power source.
Okay.
And certainly it has the ability to ramp up, which if we are going to apply ourselves properly as a country and really become a manufacturing force, which I think is the direction we should be taking, our education system is not designed to be aligned with necessarily having a country that's just commercially driven. You know, our math literacy is one of the worst in the world. And you know, if you can't do maths, you can't do accounting. If you can't do accounting, you can't do business. You know, so if we align ourselves properly to become a manufacturing state or a manufacturing country, we're certainly going to need power.
Okay.